In the process, I found two LLCs that paid 3 times the taxable value on the properties. That, you know, I mean, one of them was $960,000 for 50 foot of beach on Torch Lake. Okay. So anyway, that's the purpose of this, is so we have some control over this situation. I'm sure there'll be some problems with it in the long run. But if we get this thing up off the ground, at least we have control over the number, the location, and the conduct of some of the owners and renters. Anyway, as soon as Christine's ready, we'll.
I'm trying to get it to connect to the owl and it is not wanting to. You're awake, you're plugged in. You have power. What is that smart sound?
Anyway, the draft copies you have, stuff to write with, just write down.
Oh, you can hear.
When we get
I
to it,
cannot get it to
we'll
connect
discuss
to the owl for sound, but give me a few minutes and I will figure that out.
I'm not trying to punish anybody here. We just need to get a grip on this thing. So in my estimation, when we get to the R1 regulations, I'm gonna try to, like I told the attorney yesterday on a phone call, try to be as lenient as possible, but we still need to have something in place where the township per se, the community has some control over the situation. And this is what establishes that. So this is important. How are we doing?
It won't connect to the owl. I don't know why. But we can start.
Ready? Okay, got us 10 a.m. exactly. Order, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please make sure your cell phones are muted or turned off. There is no agenda because the only thing on the agenda is this ordinance. Roll call, recognition visitors.
Greg Bradley,
Yep.
Albert Keys, absent. Tom Beckers,
Wasn't.
Joanne Childs, Christine Johnson here.
According to Christine, she had some corrections and definitions again. Okay, I also, I didn't print it, I should have. There is a table of contents to this thing, so you can. That might be helpful.
How many are you? 5?
Yeah, it's a couple of fairly.
2? 2 of the 5.
The board has one.
Okay.
Well, no, they don't. Actually, I didn't print any of them up. I just put that together after I finished this. I could print, Well, at least 5 of them, so that we have them here. Okay, Christine, I'll let you
Oh, I,
go first here. This is an update. If you have an old one, this was done this week. There are a couple of minor changes in it, and so if you have an old copy of this, make a note. This will be available once we get through this thing. We will publish it. So there'll be copies available online or at the office. Yes, ma'am.
You're saying there's been changes and you want to know what they are.
What's that?
She said that there was a meeting copy and if there's been changes to the meeting, let us know what.
Yeah. When we get there, I want to get through this today. So one of them was I moved something out of definitions and put it in licensing, and the other one was the other major change was the requirement of a calendar for reservations for the calendar year, so that we're aware of when and what weeks you plan to have visitors, and it doesn't have to be a full calendar, just a list of when your short-term rental is rented, so that we can monitor that and make sure if the restrictions in R1 are going to be the meat of the subject today. Okay, the season needs to be defined, and if there's a restriction on the number of weeks, we have to decide on that, if any. Okay, and the other thing would be discussion of rentals outside the seasonal restrictions for R1. This is R1 only. Okay, this is the neighborhood. What we're trying to do is protect the neighborhood. That's the thing. So when we get there, I'm sure there'll be some discussion. Did get some feedback from an attorney yesterday in the email the board did. And we'll include that in the discussions. This is just for reference, so you can find what you're looking for. We're still waiting on Doug.
it's not showing up at all.
Yeah, I sent him.
Oh, no, Doug is on.
Yeah.
Doug is on.
No, I sent him the link
I'm
yesterday.
talking about the owl. You said Doug, and I thought that's what you were talking about.
Let me know when you're ready.
Can see you, but we cannot hear you.
What?
Cannot hear anything. We cannot hear you. There is no sound. If you can hear me, there is no sound. Tell me this isn't stupid. Mhm. Yeah, please. There is no sound.
Hello, there is no sound. I'm with you, Brian. I sent a text to one of the board members to tell him there's no sound. We can't hear anything.
Thank you. Yeah, they're not paying attention.
No, no. So I don't know what else to do. Besides the fact you and I can hear each other. So anyway, I'm gonna remute and try to get somebody's attention there.
Thank you.
Who are you talking to?
It's got a door and an egress window. You don't have any of that in RV. You don't, you
Yes.
define it.
If you have a table, if you have a bed or a couch, or if you have a sink and a toilet, you're a dwelling unit under this definition.
Under this. This is gonna allow so much more pressure in the area and to create a larger commercial business operation. I think.
They still have to have an application.
They do.
Yeah, here's the deal. There's a sentence I put in here. Once we issue the initial licenses, that's a cap. R1 is capped. No, it will be. Okay, so the next board, when you go, if you have a problem where you actually rescind or revoke a license, okay, that license is retired. I'm looking at long-term, we put a cap on it then. If we have a problem with a certain owner or rentals, okay, and we revoke that license is retired and the cap drops one number. Okay, this gives some form of control to future boards, okay, to decide, especially in the residential R1 neighborhoods, okay, that we can start reducing some of this congestion. And I understand people are gonna fight this in court.
Well, let's just to be a devil's advocate here, if I'm for this at all.
Can we stay on track
This is
here?
all the RV, it's just, this is part of the subject.
I know, but it's not, it's,
To-
we're in a business meeting. It's not public comment yet.
All right, hang on. Let him make his point.
Thank you.
I hear this, Joe hears it, I said, oh, they're gonna enact this. I'm gonna go right now, put them on my lot and apply for the license here in the beginning. So I'm under the gun on the date.
Right,
So now I've applied for it, I've got, what's to stop that?
there's nothing to stop that. The thing about it is the license application process is gonna be orderly. All right. Hopefully orderly. Okay, so that once we get the initial number of licenses done, okay, then there's a hard cap on it. Every license gets to be reviewed. If you bought this parcel of property simply to put short-term rentals on it, okay, that would have to go from the zoning administrator's office to the township board and say, okay, this guy bought this piece of property for this purpose, right? And the board would make that decision, whether or not to issue that license. Okay, now if we cap the number of short-term rental units on a parcel, that addresses your problem with the RVs. Okay, and the other thing is, nothing in here is grandfather. But in the case of the guy on Valley Road that has his 4 campers set up, okay, well, we could issue that license even if we restrict all future licenses to 2 STRs per parcel or not. Okay, that would be a board decision because we don't want to deprive somebody of the income they're getting now, which supports whatever they're doing. What we're trying to do is control what happens in the future.
There's also the provision of the.
That's for residential units, that's housing. That is the Michigan construction code for a bedroom. Okay, now what we're saying here under the definition is that you have a camper or a trailer or a mobile home that has a bathroom, a kitchen, a sleeping quarters, and a dining table in it. You qualify as a dwelling unit under this ordinance.
On the, we keep bringing back to the Valley Road. So unless those people apply for a license, they're okay. Because we can't assume that they're renting those. Those could be 4 families that own that property together and they just come up and vacation together.
I understand that.
So we can't assume unless
that
they.
would be a question for the ZA to go and find out what the deal is over there. Okay, so now you either need a home occupancy permit. I know he's not living there. Okay, or he needs a short-term rental license. Okay, and in that case, because he's been there for so long, been there as long as I've been here, and it's going on 30 years. All right, so you don't want to punish an existing owner for doing what he's been doing for decades.
Rapid River Township has a family, great big field, and they have all their campers there.
All right, can we move on now? Yes.
The bed and breakfast definition, at the last meeting, there was a discussion to include the owners who live next door. Because they are right there, and I don't see that included in the definition that you are.
Basically, I gave that some thought to. The proximity clause, which was what we were looking at, a license that was for, I believe, emergency contact purposes. If you're living on the property and renting that property on a short-term basis, you're a homeowner occupied business and for that parcel. Okay, but under the short-term rental ordinance, you just have to be in proximity within 60 minutes, okay, of a response for an emergency if we have a problem with one of your renters.
I remember the discussion last time on the bed and breakfast itself, and including those people who live next door.
Well, yes, Dan.
Sorry, the definition of bed and breakfast is very specific in that, it's an owner occupied building and they rent out rooms within that building. It's not a separate entire
Right.
structure that they're in.
It is separate from the short-term rental provision because it's a homeowner occupied business.
And you rent rooms.
This is becoming a public comment session.
Okay. So that's the difference. All right. A rental next door to a bed and breakfast. would fall under this. The bed and breakfast itself is defined as a homeowner occupied business. So that license would not be required unless there's a separate, no, not even then. If you're living there, it's a commercial enterprise. Go. We're done.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. Under license holder, there is a line that says the license holder is deemed responsible for the oversight and care of the short-term rental if they choose not to utilize a caretaker. That is not part of a definition and should be placed elsewhere. Perhaps even on the application itself and not actually in the ordinance.
License holder, the owner or authorized agent of the property.
That would be your definition. But the next line is
Just
not a,
basically strike the next one. Put a period there.
Which one are we taking?
the second,
License holder, second sentence, it stops at the owner or authorized agent of the property. Short and
the
sweet.
reason it's so important to make sure your definitions are clear and concise is because that is what the attorney is gonna have to defend.
Right.
And if those are not accurate, we will lose.
Owner looks fine.
Owner's good. Parking space, we have in our zoning ordinance, a definition of parking in section 11.01 of ordinance 22. You're defining your parking space. And I thought maybe we could just include that statement that is found in zoning ordinance 22, section 11.01. But also property must have available on-site parking to accommodate all renter vehicles. That is not a definition. And that should be included in the
That
ordinance
needs to
itself.
be moved to
Mhm.
regulations
Mhm.
or the
Parking.
standards section. Parking. That was the one. Okay, that's the definition. This was from the planning commission.
Oh, you did change it because I only
Yeah.
it's a small line. Oh, parking space.
So,
Wait, what is that? Oh, that's standards. Okay.
so.
So that is already in under standards for parking.
Right. But, we're talking about short-term rentals, so we can move that to item B under 605 standards.
Okay.
So we can move that to 6.0. It'll be.
Okay.
Okay, continue. Person,
Under, those are good. Person, renter, those are good. I didn't see anything. Or have any notes on those. Under short-term rental, the definition of short-term rental. A short-term rental means a dwelling unit in which guests, transient, are provided lodging for a period less than 30 days, and you have written in there and a minimum of not less than 7 days. You're defining a short-term rental. And I think it should just stop at a period of less than 30 days. If you,
well, the 7-day minimum is
it would be 0 to 30, really, but
because we want.
in your definition,
Yeah, I
it doesn't-
understand, but the weekend warrior problem has to be addressed.
I think most of our short-term rental owners have expressed that they prefer a 7-day for sure.
Limitations, minimum rental should be 7 days, so that's redundant. We can strike it from definition.
Okay,
Okay, so
so just striking that a minimum of not less than. Now, on zoning administrator, the appointed officer of Clearwater Township, I added established under ordinance 22. And then to effect proper administration, and I added and enforcement of this ordinance.
And you will notice that I did hand out. Here we go. Clearwater Township job description, position, community safety officer. Okay. If we pass this ordinance, okay, we're gonna be inundated with paperwork, not to mention enforcement, monitoring. So this may be changed to include basically a secondary position that operates under the zoning administration's office to include the community safety officer. So he can assist with the administration, regulation, and enforcement of the short-term rental agreement. Actually, any other ordinance, noise, light, but that we can consider later on.
And when I read it's ordinance enforcement officer instead of public safety.
Whatever we call them.
OEO.
But basically, it's the same duties and responsibilities of the ZA. It's just providing them.
So should we include an appointed officer or representative?
Officer.
No, that's the definition of your zoning administrator, not ordinance enforcement officer. So maybe we need to include
Right.
the definition of ordinance enforcement.
I wanted to bring this up though, simply because this is way too much. Okay, for one person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we're also gonna have to figure out how to farm out the tracking in this system. In other words, we're gonna need a computer program and somebody to run it. And basically to put all of this information into a computer so that it's available for enforcement purposes, licensing purposes, applications. Anyway, so we'll leave that the way it is, other than including and enforcement for the ZA, and then we'll get to
And established under ordinance 22.
an enforcement officer secondary later. Okay.
And then under zoning board of appeals, I just put that as well, established under ordinance 22. I don't know.
Well, you know,
It's just your definition. So if anybody has any questions about zoning board of appeals, it points back to that ordinance.
okay.
I mean, that's obvious for you who know, but
But for the general public. The thing about it is when you issue a license here, okay, they need a copy of this.
Yeah.
Obviously. All right, they also need a copy of the noise ordinance. They also need, I mean, we could get into some printing and publishing here. If you're
I think
looking
that
at,
should be their responsibility that's on the website. They can go to the website and print a copy
the
of
thing
it.
about it is you have to ensure that they have the information that you're enforcing in their hands. So when you issue the license, you give them a copy of this. You give them a copy of the visitor guidelines. Okay, you give them a copy of the complaint. So that all goes in the application and licensing process, which we're getting into right
So
now.
they get all that when they get their license.
Right, when they get the license, you hand them a pamphlet. It's got everything in it. Okay. We're in the licensing.
Ton of questions jumping up on the live feed. License required, do we need to say anywhere within Clearwater Township? Or can it just say located within Clearwater Township? I mean, that's just,
Yeah, that was just taken straight from the,
yeah.
okay, strike anywhere.
And then a number 2 of the license required. Again, I took out a minimum of 7 days. I'm not sure. So this whole section here, maybe I should look at. Did you change any of that? No, you didn't. Okay, so that's what you
No, I
had
didn't.
had before. Well, that's not good. My internet connection is unstable.
Okay, we have a minimum of 7 days.
So
Seven.
this is where I got confused because you have your 3 to 5 years. And then you have later on every year and
Okay, the period of the license.
yeah,
Okay.
so this,
The license has to be basically paid for on an annual basis.
a license shall be valid for a period of 3 to 5, you know, that's your later on, you're going 5 years for this, 4 years for
Well,
this.
What it
3 years
is
for this.
basically to stagger the paperwork.
And that part I
That
thought,
would be the initial license. Okay, so an initial license, let's put it for clarity purposes. Because that sentence basically says the initial terms of license period shall be staggered in order of precedence. That's another issue we got to deal with.
well, yeah,
Thereafter-
I thought that should be taken out of there because our administrative process shouldn't be part of the ordinance. So,
Well,
so valid for 3 to 5 years, thereafter, what is the thereafter? Shall be 3 years.
right. In other words,
Take that all.
the license should be,
It
in
does.
other words, a license should be reviewed every 3 years. Okay, but in order to set this thing up and get it running, you don't want to try and go through 120 applications in less than 90 days.
Well, you're probably gonna, because everybody's gonna apply all at once.
Right.
But we have, this is for next year, it's not gonna be this year's.
No,
There's
what I'm trying to,
time that can be done.
right,
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to do is as of January 1st of next year, you have all your applications in, you have all your licenses issued. Okay, and then as they expire and come up for renewal, all right, then the zoning administrator and the current board, if there's any problems, basically, they're brought up at that point, and then new licenses issued for 3 years.
Wouldn't it be easier just to do it annually? Then it, there's, okay, this.
It
person
depends on
should be-
how it works. I'm talking about trying to set this thing up
I agree.
with what we have.
Well, all of the expiration dates are gonna be at the same time.
No, that's just staggers.
So some
The
people.
3 to 5 years staggers.
This year.
Well,
then-
yeah, but your 3 to 5 years I'm sorry, Joanne.
Yeah,
Your 5 years is for Clearwater Township residents, your 4 years is for Michigan, and your 3 year is for anybody outside of that. That's your staggering.
Right. And then after the initial
But what if
license,
you have more, I mean, like all of them are under one? You know?
I don't believe, what it does, it spreads the workload out.
say, Green Lake or those, do they do it annually? I was under the impression Green Lake was annually.
If you go through 100 or so licenses annually every year, you're gonna be driving people crazy.
And they've already obeyed the rules, why would it be so difficult?
Trying to split out the workload.
Yeah, and I see that.
Okay, because we don't have an application yet.
What's that?
We do not have an application that's been approved yet.
Well, that section there should be under license anyways. I mean, it is actually under license because you have it staggered there. So that portion there says to alleviate the administrative workload, that shouldn't be in the ordinance. You do say the initial term of license periods shall be staggered in order of precedence. What is the precedence?
Precedent and R1 limitations.
Is that
So if you
going to
go-
be clear? Is that, are you giving certain people precedence, you know?
Yes. Legacy owners in the township come first. Okay, people that have been coming up here for years with a second home that live in the state come second. Anybody that's out of state,
So this staggering here of the 5, 4, and 3, that's your precedence
right? If you go. It's in
or your order of precedence?
here.
Because that line there doesn't
Otherwise-
clarify that.
Basically, what we have to do is. I know I have it. Oh, okay. To the next license.
Mhm.
License is required for each dwelling unit to be rented on a short-term basis. 5-year license period shall be reserved for Clearwater Township residents. If your primary residence in Clearwater Township, you get the first crack at this.
How can you network in your under police powers ordinance, how are we justifying discriminating based on our?
I knew that would come up. Okay,
That is illegal.
this,
I do believe the attorney addressed that as well.
right. Okay, but
Township attorney.
in some way. We're not discriminating simply because everybody that applies for a license is gonna get one. Okay, unless there's a significant problem with a license application, everybody will get one. This just defines the term of the initial license. Okay, so that we can stagger the initial process, so we get it up. We don't make mistakes with this. Okay, and then thereafter, when the legacy owner's term expires at the end of 5 years, they're on equal footing with everybody else. The new license is issued for 3 years. The reason for the limitation on the license is, so if there's a problem with consistently with an owner or his renters, and it comes up, that license can be referred to the township board. The township board can make a decision as to whether to renew that license, whether to pick a fight with an owner and deny that license renewal. Okay, this gives us a way to do that. The discrimination, my argument against that would be everybody that applies for a license this year is going to get one. We're going to cap the number, but the order of precedence for the expiration is to spread out the workload so that when we address this situation initially, we do it right the first time. We stagger the license renewals so that down the road, you're not dealing with 100 or 120 licenses all at once. Is that clear?
So if these licenses are 3 years, let's just say in general, that's what they're going to.
Right.
Are you expecting payments on a yearly basis
The license fee for an annual,
or annual?
it's an annual fee. The license gets reviewed, the license application gets reviewed every 3 years. That gives the township board an option, like I said. If they don't want to renew a license for a particular owner, that is a board decision and they can pick their own fights. Okay. You can't make them basically open-ended. Okay, you have to give the board an opportunity to have it say on the public's behalf that this owner is a consistent problem. Okay, let's just revoke his license. And let the chips fall where they may from there. I don't expect that to happen. I think most owners are gonna be responsible. I think this will make them, I think, look at their clientele with a closer eye, especially, with the 7-day minimum. So that we don't have repetitive problems such as trespassing, theft, vandalism. The conduct portion of this is pretty specific.
Won't the,
But that is the purpose of staggering the initial licenses. It gives the residents of Clearwater Township basically more room initially. The people in from downstate and around the state that have second homes up here that rent them out, it gives them preference over an LLC based out of New Jersey or Illinois or Ohio or Indiana. Okay, that's what I'm looking at here. So yes, we'll issue you the license. Okay, but these are the rules. And when your license comes up for renewal in 3 years, the board will review your rental history and see if there's a problem. That's the option.
can we discuss the one you said a minimum of 7? I understand the weekend warrior that you say, but can our ordinance enforcement officer deal with any problems that come up with,
That's why we
I like
have
it too.
the ordinance
yeah,
to,
because our ordinances that we have that we
Clean
can
up the
enforce and
issues.
control the issues that are going on with the short-term rentals without limiting the short-term rentals and what they can do.
yeah, I don't agree with the limit either, because not everyone's gonna be a 7-day rental. And
So,
that is up to
Well, when we get there, we'll
well, that's
Go.
right here, it's in this. Item 2 of 6.01. A minimum of 7 days. And we would like to strike that.
So you're saying then that we could have 2 or 3 different parties go onto a property inside of a 7-day period of time? I got a weekend warrior, and then I got an early week warrior, and then I got a warrior. So 3 different parties are in a rental facility inside of a 7-day window. Well, if you strike it.
Wouldn't you put that later in the document? I mean, the license requirements doesn't have anything to do
Right.
at that point with the minimum days, but at this point, maybe a reasonable number might be something like 4 days. Where you still what you're trying to do is to populate the area with tourism with nice families, right? You don't want Ferris college football team showing up for Friday and Saturday.
Well, if they want to pay a 7-day fee and stay for 3 days, more power to them. But the agreement is for 7 days.
So families can't always get a full.
No.
Right.
4 days might be.
I think they might only
Okay,
get
well,
3
the
days.
consensus seems to be eliminate, strike the floor to 7-day minimum.
I would say so. You could have a football team that comes and they're known for their partying, but they could.
Well, here's the thing
prohibited
too,
on that
if there's a noise violation or some other violation, basically the owner would get cited. The renter would
Right,
get
that's
cited.
why the ordinance.
And we get down into the other rules. Yes, sir.
I agree that it should be struck from 6.012 and address when we talk about the R1 for the chickens. And section.
We'll look at that when we get there.
Because it should apply strictly to our.
Okay, so the minimum of 7 days is gone from
license
6.01, section 2.
There is a lot of recommendation from the attorney on this particular section, and it does talk about approval based on assorted contents of the application runs the risk of arbitrary denials, which could lead to validity and reasonableness challenges. So being very careful how to word that, and he gives us different wording.
Where are you at?
It's that whole license required section. He gave us a suggested wording for point number 1. And then he has A and C, but I think you changed your numbering under that.
What he suggested.
His suggestion is an owner of property in Clearwater Township. So instead of an owner of any dwelling unit, he says an owner of property in Clearwater Township or their agent shall not operate or utilize their property as a short-term rental unless the owner or the owner's authorized agent has obtained a short-term rental license for that property or dwelling unit in accordance with the requirements of this ordinance. Which some of that wording's in there, but not, it's not the same. So he changed it to recommend that wording. And then he recommended whichever comes first for that 3 years or until change of ownership.
Okay, so basically he wants. He's got 2 sections of language here.
First is right here in point 2.
Right here. I'm not finding one which.
We want a legal description. Under required, license required. Okay, now this,
Yeah, we're gonna have to rewrite that license required to his suggestion. It's only a slight change in wording for clarification, so there's no room for any person's preference or discretion. And then include whichever occurs first in point 2. And then we're gonna remove the administrative process from that section 2 and include whichever occurs first.
okay, so to alleviate the administrative workload, it's stricken.
Yeah,
Okay, 601.2, to alleviate the administrative workload. That portion of that sentence is gone. The initial terms of license period shall be staggered in order of precedence. Now, that is the other issue.
we don't have a statement on what criteria leads to approval of an application. And he does recommend that we have a statement of criteria that would lead to approval.
Okay, and
So that's something to look at. Maybe he can give us more guidance on that. The more we can incorporate what he suggested,
No,
the
I
less he
understand.
has to work on it.
But,
I'll say mine.
okay, so. Septic and well. License number required, starting at 607. We might want to make that an entire article. 606 is conduct. 607 begins the requirements for the application itself. License number, rules, violations, fines.
Yeah, you had 607 is septic and well.
Septic and well, basically the status of the septic system.
Well, trying to find where you're talking.
Oh, okay.
Approval of application.
6.07 basically begins part of the requirements for the application itself.
No, 607 as well in septic.
Section 6.07, I'm trying to find that, and that's where it says septic. So
Yeah.
I'm lost where you're at.
Right.
602
602?
or 603 license application.
Okay, I think you was good.
It's one of those.
Sometimes you lose me.
I understand.
Oh, okay, I got you. The license actually. And then 607 is under standards, I believe.
Let me double check on yours, so. All right, 0.3 under license required, let's go back to 6.01. 3. So on 2, you say a license shall be valid for a period of 3 to 5 years. And on 3, you say that the license will need to be renewed annually.
License registration. You left out a word. You left out a word.
You
In
mean,
other words,
in license,
If you're registering for a license and that license is for 3 years, why do you have to register again?
the license will be renewed annually, the license period, okay? For basically review, in other words, annually, they pay a fee to keep that license
can we
valid.
keep it at that?
Okay, they also have to include their reservation calendar with it. So we know if there's a restriction on the number of weeks or the length of the season.
Which I'm gonna say no
Okay.
to.
Basically, if it falls within that range,
All right.
we know they're in compliance. Okay. The fee to support this thing and enforcement must be on an annual basis so that any assistance in administration or enforcement we need is paid for and budgeted annually.
So you have a license fee and you have an annual registration fee?
Right.
So they're paying twice?
Yeah.
For their
They're paying
license?
each year. What they're gonna do is the application is our normal land use permit application fee. That's $300. Okay, that's to go through the license and make sure it's valid.
Oh, so they're gonna
Everything's-
pay a pre-fee,
Right,
a license fee and a registration fee?
no. No, the license fee will be $500, but it would be collected on an annual basis.
Can we word that way?
Yes, it's in here.
Hey, when we bring up.
That's not what I'm reading.
In other words, to process your application, go check out whatever it is you want to rent, okay? To initiate the license, check out the facilities, make sure that everything is met under the standards. That fee is $300. It's the same as our land use permit fee. Okay, when we issue the license, it's $500 or whatever we decide on. I've got some that say $750, $1,000, $2,000. All right, that fee is paid annually. When your license expires, basically it'll be reviewed, the history of your rental, whether there's any problems or not. The zoning administrator will basically make a decision, or if he has a question, refer to the Township Board as to whether that short-term rental license should be renewed or denied. All right, but every year for every unit, you want to park four RVs on a piece of property, okay? It's going to cost you $2,000 every year, right off the top. Okay.
Maybe somehow where it's renewed yearly, but reviewed every 3 years.
Right.
Because you have to pay for it every year. If I don't pay for one, you're not going to let me renew.
Right.
So it's really renewed on a yearly basis.
Plus, we want to make sure we get a calendar of reservations, so we know. Right.
I like that one.
So are you suggesting that every 3 years, you're also gonna have to pay another?
No,
Reapplication.
no. If you pay your $500 for your annual license fee and the license is renewed, it's just ad infinitum. Okay, the application, basically, when your expiration comes up for renewal, the zoning administrator notifies you and the board that, okay, these licenses are expired. Okay, if there's a problem with any of those licenses for conduct violations, whatever, those would be referred to the township board so they could be reviewed. All right, and the township board would make the decision on whether or not to renew that license or deny. So as long as everybody's in compliance with this, I don't see a problem. The issue here is to make sure that we don't have a problem. And if we do, it's identifiable. It's made public. Okay, and that something that the township board basically can take care of business like they're supposed to. Right now, we have no way to control these other than the noise or criminal trespass.
So the fee is the same if you rent to 4 people or you went to 50. Your license-
Yeah, well, yeah, but the restrictions would be based on bedroom and your septic system, which is why the septic stands continue.
Money that you pay, when you rent to 4 people, which is a lot less money. Then if you rent to 15, you still pay the same.
I understand that. But you're renting for an entire season. And the fee, $500 I just threw out there. Okay, that has to be determined here. All right, as to what we want to put in the ordinance. But I would venture to say that you don't rent any one of your units for less than $500 a week. Okay, am I close?
For sure.
So $500 for a year's worth of rentals.
So you want
Okay, but the restrictions based on occupancy would be dealt with bedrooms and with the septic system. Okay, and it's the same price for whether you have a 10 unit or 10-person unit or a 2-person unit. Okay, the license fee is the license fee.
And the licenses will be used to help make sure everything is done. They'll pay for an ordinance officer and any of the other stuff. needs to be done.
Right. Okay, see, move 601B. Where were we at here? Let's scratch things again.
Yeah, we were talking about 0.3, license required, about, okay, so you're saying it's a registration renewed annually. Yeah, so you have your initial license application and a
Okay,
license renewal.
All license, let's get the registrations out of there. All licenses must be renewed annually,
Okay,
okay? Does that make
no
sense?
matter how long they are, they're still renewed annually.
Right. The license period is basically for review by the zoning administrator, the enforcement officer, and if there's a problem, the township board, so they can make a decision on whether or not that owner gets his license renewed or not. It gives the township board an option.
Yeah, okay.
One missing is, first year, this year, you all vote.
No, I understand that. I know, I understand that. And here's the deal. If we book in the season and you have reservations outside the season, okay, we have to make allowances for that too. Okay, the trick is to get the ordinance passed, get the licenses issued and deal with the fallout, okay, as we can, so that the next board has a game plan down basically for the continuing enforcement and licensing of short-term rentals. All I'm trying to do here is establish the ordinance and get a program initiated so that, and I understand there's going to be problems. I do. The 7-day minimum is a problem. The bookending the season is a problem. Limiting the number of weeks in a month is a problem. We understand all that. Reservations that have already been booked for this summer could be a problem, depending on what goes on.
Next year.
Right, it starts, yeah, but I'm saying you have return guests, I'm assuming, on an annual basis. Okay, some of which may or may not be affected by what we decide. Yes, sir.
And then, and this might be addressed later, and if it is, please tell me, and we don't have to discuss it, but another question or possible problem, what does that process look like for the 3-year period? I mean, how does that happen? What is the process? Is the board actually going to review 100 every year?
What's gonna happen is the zoning administrator will review. Okay, and if there's a problem with the property, okay, if there's an issue, okay, then he refers it to the board.
But doesn't that make it subjective, or is it defined with?
It's defined within here, and there is a statement in here that that the standards in this ordinance, okay, are not to be interpreted. They're basically, if it's in black and white, that's the way they're enforced.
So at 3 years, if there's no issue, it's.
Yeah, it's just the zoning administrator said renews the license. No problem with this one. No problem with this one. Got a couple violations here. Goes up to the board. You guys look at it.
But even if there's one violation, it doesn't mean that you can't do it.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. If there's a consistent problem with the property, it gives the board an option. Okay, and it's not gonna be this board. But it gives them,
I guess I'm sorry, that is where my question is, why is it an option if maybe you have a neighbor that doesn't necessarily like the fact that the other neighbor does what they want to do with their property, and they can make it a problem and constantly call.
I understand that. So there is a section in here, fraudulent complaints. Okay, and if you haven't read it yet, okay, basically what we do is pursue that in a civil court. We just charge them with being a nuisance and okay, moving on.
Okay, we are on
Okay, does
6
anybody have a
point.
problem with it? And other than the discrimination
two.
part, with the staggered licenses and issue?
Well,
Okay,
we're-
everybody gets a license. There is no discrimination. When they come up for renewal, that is to spread the workload. That's all it is for.
And once you just look at the allegations to me, just to have some sort of randomized, if the problem is the staggering, you could just have a randomized term that you give to each person that comes in the initial time. You get a 5, you get a 4, you get a 3 for the first time around. That way it's not discriminated on based on residency, it's just random how
In the long run, provided that the owners, basically are responsible and there are no issues with the licensee. With that respect, I don't think that would be, I mean, that would be an alternate solution, probably more realistic than what I have here. Okay, you get a 3-year license, you get et cetera. You're paying the fee on an annual basis only, so that doesn't have any effect on it. All it is for is to spread out the workload, so we're not dealing with 100 or so licenses all at once. So how to word that, I guess, basically.
The license period is so long, the fee is annual.
Right. So we can cross off basically strike the 2, 3, and 4 and just make it,
What are you on?
an initial licenses shall be staggered at 3, 4, and 5-year periods.
Should there be a benefit? I like a 5-year license period should be reserved for Clearwater Township residents.
What's that?
There should be a little bit of a benefit to be a resident of our township. Is that what you said?
I would imagine,
We do the rental in the gym, so to speak, residents get, so.
That was my, who's power ordinance can't make that distinction.
right, and yeah,
That's why you say.
what you're looking at is somebody claiming discrimination based on the fact that our legacy owners got precedence for a longer, shall we say, review period.
So you
Okay.
say you're paying.
Anybody else?
The whole thing.
So the initial licenses would be randomly signed 3, 4, and 5-year.
So you're gonna change that whole section of 6.02.
And 3,
While
4,
you're
and
doing that,
5-year.
point 1 needs to be removed completely because that's a repeat of what's already in 6.01.
What's that?
No, point number 1, that's a
Yeah.
repeat of what's already up here, so that doesn't need to be in there at all.
Like,
You could change that to whatever.
Okay, so you're saying point 1 is basically redundant from
Mhm,
the license required,
yeah,
so that gets scratched.
and then you're gonna edit the 2, 3, and 4.
So 602 would become then license terms instead of just license, and would describe the staggering of the initial licenses.
And then point 5, legal suggested we say 30 days of receipt of a completed and approved application.
Well, if you're going to issue it, you would assume it's approved.
A license
I mean, if
will
it's
be.
not approved.
It will be issued, and
Okay.
that's what you sat here and just said, everybody's getting a license.
Well,
You're
what
all
I'm
getting
saying is,
licenses,
read the rest of this.
right, yeah,
Okay. So anyway,
It's just- oh, I think they can hear now. I saw that there were texts sent and I fixed it. Thank you, though.
okay, so anyway, license will be issued within 30 days of receipt of a complete application. Complete application. Right,
I think that needs to go at least 60 days. I mean,
okay,
if you're gonna get flooded,
but that's true too.
you know.
So change
I
that
mean,
to
So
60.
change that to 60.
Whoever gets stuck with this, they can have some.
And, if there are conditions that aren't met, they're not gonna be approved. So you're saying that
Right.
you're gonna get a license whether your conditions are met or not. So you have to say approved.
Well, what I'm saying is everybody that applies for a license that meets the standards of this ordinance will be issued a license initially.
Yeah, that's what that says by saying.
But,
Everybody is eligible.
right,
I mean,
right.
Assuming it's gonna take to review each one. Is it gonna take a day for each one?
Well,
Depending on how,
first of all,
I don't know,
you have to research it properly.
they have to have
You
everything.
have to verify the legitimate owner. If you have an agent that, you need a letter of authorized agency notarized from, a notary public that goes with this application so that that agent is legally bound to often authorized to act on behalf of that property owner in absence.
So the first year, or the first time you do it, is gonna be the biggest workload, and after that, you get everything in the computer spits out.
Right, okay, and then the next board can review and amend this as they wish. The thing about it is to get the ordinance in place, get the program up and running. So that 2025, the next board has everything sitting in front of them. Okay, the licenses basically would be reviewed and issued. And any changes then would be their responsibility and not ours. I just want to make sure that this thing gets off and running and organized so that they know what they're dealing with.
Do you expect this will start before November 20th? Because November 20th is when a new board takes over. They're not only gonna have all the taxes and everything else.
If we get this approved, get it back from, first of all, we're gonna have to have a public hearing. All right, and then basically publish it in a newspaper, and then approve it. And then we get to set up basically the mechanisms to administer and enforce the thing. And that's all our responsibility. That's where it ends. Running the program would fall on the next board after the November 20th.
Hopefully, this is all, applications will come in and everything before January.
Exactly. They start in October. Okay, so you have October and a major part of November, basically to get the applications in, the approved, the licenses issued. And
Once we get
in
this,
the interim, while the lawyer is going through this again with a fine tooth comb, we come up with the application requirements. Basically the application so that people have them. Like the visitor guide as to conduct. Okay, the license itself. And the pamphlet and the hiring of another administrator to help with getting this program up and running.
so as soon as this is all approved and that, people can start applying. They don't have to.
They
wait
have to
till
come up with the
October,
application,
November,
yes, but yes, they can start applying.
Make it easier.
And then the licenses would be issued accordingly. The October 1st to January 1st thing would kick in the next year, which if you're gonna apply for a license, it would be between October 1st and December 31st of the preceding year, so that that license application could be reviewed. And that would be up to the next board as to whether or not they're going to expand the cap number or not. You can apply for a license all day long. If there's a hard cap on the number, then the township board succeeding us would have to decide whether that application is valid and should be issued a license, or the cap is a hard cap and we've got enough.
Do you have a hard cap number?
We won't until all the applications are in and the licenses are issued. At that point, boom, we're done.
So
This
when
one,
licenses come in for 2025, that's gonna be your. cap.
that's going to be the cap.
And you're not gonna allow any.
No, it's,
The cap kicks in on January 1st.
we wouldn't have any say in the matter.
I know we will.
If they want to remove the cap, the next board would have the discretion to do so.
That's approved licenses, correct?
Yes,
Because they're not all the way approved. Is that correct?
we don't know that. Okay, we won't know that until we figure out what the standards are, whether those applications conform to the standards, which is what we're going through right now. Okay, and if they don't, they won't be issued a license until they do.
I have one other question about the licenses, like, can homeowners apply for multiple licenses?
Yes,
And why is that? Why is there a restriction on that? That might alleviate that RV campgrounds.
if you conform to the standards, all right, and we put a cap on the number per parcel, okay, then that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, but if you're gonna park 3 RVs on your property, you're gonna pay for every last one. Okay, and they're gonna conform to the standards and the guidelines.
Yeah, but maybe if we had, I mean, I don't know, if we have really compromised, but if we had some like a percentage of properties that could be short-term rentals, a percentage of, or maybe only 1 or 2.
We don't have any restrictions on anything other than R1. One,
Is there a percentage there?
no.
No.
Once we get the numbers, the licenses on, and it's capped, if the succeeding board wants to go into the numbers and do a percentage of R1 or any other land use district that can be used for short-term rentals, that's their prerogative. All I'm trying to do is get the program off the ground.
As far as the cap goes, I don't know how to suggest to address it, but I would like to propose that, you know, if you have a property owner that is continually stood by and paid their taxes and supported this township, and their family has owned that property, the cap and the generations and passing down for generations, kind of sounds like it might be a little restrictive. So.
It would be up to the succeeding board whether the cap stays there or not. All I'm saying is for this, the purposes of this board, once the license applications are in, the licenses are issued, boom, that's the number.
Saying, so if I die next year and so whatever cap, then forced to sell.
No, because that license is still, I mean, it goes with the property.
So if you sell the property, it will go with the property?
The change of ownership is addressed in here.
That would be change of ownership.
Okay, change of ownership. All we have to do is be notified. If it's a family member, that's fine.
That's my concern.
If you sell it to an LLC, there might be a problem. Okay, but
But a lot of times,
then when that license term lapses, okay, the next board will be able to say, okay, this family is sold to this property management company. We've had problems with this. We're not going to renew their license.
No, you
That's
said,
their option.
it says that the license
Right.
is only good for 3 to 5 years or until sold.
I'll just address the LLC thing. I know what your intent is, and I think I understand the overall reasoning for, you don't want corporations coming in and buying up. I completely get that. But for example, in a situation where you might have a will, you might have a trust or an LLC set up for your children, and or grandchildren. And just because it's an LLC doesn't mean it's.
No, I understand that. Sole proprietorship and whatever. If you are a registered entity, that's fine. You're going to get a license anyway at this point. Okay, but yeah, what we're looking at is, yeah, but for continuity purposes, yeah, that would be up to the board. If there's was a problem with shall we say an LLC that got actually suspended or had a license revoked, and your heirs sold that property to that LLC, the board might have a problem with that. But, and that's the terms are designed for that purpose. Okay, so when your term expires, okay, the board has the option of renewing that license or not, depending on what issues they've had with the property owner or the renters. So anyway, let's try to move on here. Okay.
I don't even know where we're at.
Okay, so we have 60 days on item 5, item 6.
And did you decide whether that should be and approved or not? I think it should be, because like we said,
Completed and approved application, completed,
Mhm.
completed, it's with a D in there.
completed
Approved
the brick. And then-
application.
All right.
Okay.
Down to number 7. Under that section, the license and license holder shall be subject to all standards and penalties of this ordinance. Are you gonna penalize the license?
No, I don't know why I did that. Probably because I was tired of staring.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
So just the license holder.
shall be subject to all standards.
You're at 7 years.
So I guess if your license is subject to the standards, that means you're gonna lose the license, right?
Right. Well, no, it doesn't mean you're gonna.
Oh, it
lose
doesn't mean you're gonna lose the
You could be,
license.
basically, it's, there's a probationary period and then, a third violation. Basically, it gets tossed to the board. And the board decides what to do. So.
So you're defining that, but that's not actually written in here. You know,
Yeah, later, it's down.
does it say that later? That it'll go to the board and the board will
Yeah.
decide
Yep.
on that?
Okay,
Okay.
license holder shall be.
Sorry,
subject to all
I might not have gotten
standards
that
and penalties of This ordinance for short-term rentals. That's just a flat statement. Okay, you hold the license, you're responsible,
Right, so that's the license holder.
right? Licenses expire December 31st of the final calendar year of the license. Okay, that means you're up for review, if that is the case. Or upon failure to pay annual registration fee. Okay. Or upon transfer of ownership of property. Now, that would be, okay, where the new owner, and it's addressed here later, in the standards, you've got, I think it's 30 days to inform the township that there's been a change in ownership. Okay, then it's, their discretion as to whether that license continues as is, or a new, application has to be entered.
Well,
And
your
reviewed.
license required under 6.01 says that license does not go with the property, it goes with the owner.
That's where I don't even know the writing, so I was saying in that scenario.
It's-
Now, where are you
A license shall be valid for a period of 3 to 5 years or until a change in ownership. It's no longer valid if there's a change in ownership.
Is that the attorney's recommendation?
No, that's what is written in here, but
Which one do you have?
6.01, that's your red writing. A license shall be valid.
Ownership.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. All right, then you go down into,
and that's where the attorney suggested adding whichever occurs first. But that is saying that that license does not go with the property, it goes with the owner.
hang on.
If there is.
Okay, under, probably in the wrong place, license application. Okay, 603. Section L. It is the license holder's responsibility to inform the township any change in license application, contact information for the license holder or caretaker. And should be, we should put something in there for change of ownership.
In a trust, if it's in a trust, like family members.
Right, like
Now
that's,
that, it seems like if it's in a trust, it should follow.
it
that
will stay in the
trust.
name of the trust, depending.
Yeah, because it'll continue. in the
If
trust.
it's sold and
If
stays
it's
in the
sold
trust.
outside,
If it's
then
sold-
that
Yeah,
could be different.
right.
And you're right, that's assuming that everybody is smart enough before they die. And
Under section 8, licenses expire December 31st or upon failure to pay or upon transfer of ownership of property. Okay. Applicants may apply for a license anytime for a license effective in the same calendar year. Also,
Wait, where are you?
we should put in there in section 8 that change of ownership would require license review by the Township Board. In other words,
I think any new owner should apply for a new license.
anyway, okay, so upon a transfer of ownership of the property, a new application would be required to be.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, that just,
Can you put in there?
I feel like that's what that's saying.
yeah,
So, I mean, I don't think you need to
That's-
rewrite it.
Read right now, you're LLC, you start buying, you know.
To
Yeah.
protect families.
And as long as it
legacy
stays in the
owners,
name of
though,
that LLC, it doesn't matter who owns it.
To protect families and legacy owners, shouldn't there be something about the trust there? or is it-
okay, so upon a change of ownership, all right, a new application would be submitted. All right, regardless, okay, so if it's your family, basically, they would contact us, tell us there's a change in ownership, we would send them an application.
Right, but later in the documents that says we have,
Yeah, but
they wouldn't, in theory, they shouldn't get one.
They won't
No,
automatically.
because that license is in existence under the cap. Okay,
No, it's no longer valid.
I understand that, but the cap is not affected. If you reissue that license, the cap stays the same.
Oh, right, because it goes away and then it comes back.
It goes away and it comes back.
So you minus it and then you add it again.
Well, that's.
So if somebody else hasn't applied already, right?
Right.
And you're probably
Well,
gonna
no,
have a
if
wait
it's-
list.
If it's an existing license, if we have a waiting, list, it's a waiting. List. Well, we could do that.
This right for a person like, I don't know what the answer is. I see your intent is to give everybody, you know, the opportunity to protect their family. But this, you know, do you change or add the language about the, you know, they have the right to renew under that, under the cap or grandfathering all of their, they have that option. However, that would be great.
Okay, so basically a change of ownership.
So it's not.
If it's in the family or family trust, okay, we get notified. So there's been a change of ownership. So we would have to either reissue that license under a new name. Okay. Or send out an application to a new owner outside the family, whatever. To a sale of the property. Okay, would be a new application to the new owner if he didn't hold an existing license. So,
Is that for immediate showing or anyone?
no, if it's an immediate family, basically, you're gonna notify. So what we need to do is change the contact information on the license, change the name on the license. So basically, that information would be requested by the zoning administrator. Okay, to fix the license itself. Right? If it's a change of ownership outside the family or a family trust, or even a company to another owner, then.
We're gonna have to reword that whole
That
section
license
to
would-
show all of that.
The zoning administrator basically would send out a new application to maintain that particular license. Okay, would not be a new license issue. It would be the existing license under a chain of ownership, which would have to be modified.
You could,
And you're gonna have to define what would,
you could actually issue the license to the property ID.
Right, to the parcel number.
Change it as a owner.
Yeah, but then you're not monitoring who owns the property.
Well, that's all part of the license. The license itself stays with the property.
Right. Okay,
I don't think you should do that.
yeah, because, the thing about it is
I think every new family that wants to buy a property and rent it should have to apply.
Well, they still have to.
Because you have to go through all the stuff. If everybody else has to go through that
He's
process,
saying
why
is
wouldn't a new
there
owner
is
have to go through that?
there is an existing valid license for this property I read. Okay, there's a change of ownership.
Change of ownership.
Okay, the township is notified. Right, if it's within the family or something, all we have to do is the license information has to be updated. If,
So you're saying every license can be transferred?
yes,
So when
Are you saying within the family or everyone altogether?
no, what I'm saying is if we're passing the property, if it's held in trust or whatever, if it's a new owner, that's not basically an existing owner. Okay, then we send them another application. So this like, well, if the license goes with the property, you don't have an option.
Yeah, we want each one to apply, but I do think the legacy type family.
Right, so
should
we
be
just need what
Okay,
qualifies
so
for a
what we have to do
transfer.
is look at transfer of ownership.
Who qualifies for that?
We need to address it.
Grace period of sale, period when you could reapply. Waste your grace period, then the list will, take the next property owner.
Well, that would be, if we're addressing transfer of ownership, it's gonna be an entirely separate section of here.
You have two different types of transfer. You have one where it's a different family, and then you have a family transfer. for a
Right.
daughter.
Right. So,
Yeah, so those two things need to be separated
right,
completely.
First refusal of property itself, that's it. Yeah, right of first refusal, where, however the transfer occurs, there's an opportunity to maintain that short-term rental license. And then if they don't do it, it goes back into the pool, and the next person on the list who's waiting, they're gonna snap it up.
okay, that would be an owner option is what you're saying. Whether I want the license or not.
Yeah, because, right, I mean, I would think that's gonna impact property value as well, whether they get a transferable property to be done. And so, I would think that we want the ability to market it, but yet you have the opportunity to rent this property.
Okay. But if somebody inherits this and then puts it up for sale. Okay, now we need a new application.
Mhm.
Why did you own it? I think the new application upon change of ownership is valid. I'm just saying, the ability to hold that license and reapply and have it be considered before it goes to the next person that's waiting in line. It's attachment to the property.
Yeah, oh, I understand that, yeah. It has to stay. That license has to stay with that property to a point.
Assuming there's a valid application,
Right.
assuming it's proven that they do all the right things.
Right.
Well, if you do that though, and that family buys that house and they have no intention of doing a short-term rental, you lose that opportunity for that license.
If they have no, if they don't want to do a short-term rental, then there becomes another open license on the market.
Right.
And then
If we have a waiting list for R1,
Mhm.
for somebody that already owns property.
But you're attaching that, you're attaching that license to that property though.
But if they don't, but they can choose not to run it out.
Right.
Somebody can buy property.
Sure.
Well, they don't buy the license.
If they don't, yeah, if they don't buy the license,
So what's
They
the
don't
time
pay the
period,
annual
like Jim
fee.
said, what's the grace
Okay.
period on
that
that?
license is retired and a new license becomes available.
What is the grace, Jim, can you answer Jim's question? The grace period then, or is there one, or is there 30 days?
What for that? Well, that would be part of.
There's a whole can of worms.
transfer Of ownership. In other words, a grace period would have to be included as too far a timeline for doing all that. Okay, so that is an entire new section of licensing.
Definitely needs to be looked at. It is 11:53. Do we want to have public comment?
Okay,
Yep.
Are we on 6.04?
No, we're only on 6.03.
basically, well, if we get through,
I don't even know if we got all the way through this.
It goes to,
right, we're,
I think we're still on 6:02, but maybe we're on 6:03.
we just corrected 6027.
Right, changing the,
Expired. Or upon, okay, the question came up on, upon ownership of the, transfer of ownership of the property. That license is basically expired.
mhm. And you want to change all of that, which means you have to change it in every section.
Hang on a second. Okay, we will be addressing transfer of ownership, so this one gets a great big star. Because anything we do with transfer of ownership is going to affect this. All right, the number of license issues shall be capped on January 1st, 2025. All the licenses should be issued. Everybody should have one. Okay, and we go from there. That's the cap number. Anybody have any problems with that?
I just think we got a lot to do before we can say that that's the cutoff date.
Yeah, I know that. I understand that.
Usually putting this date there.
It might turn out to be March 30.
It might be January 1st before we get done with the ordinance.
It might be.
Okay, the item 10, the caretaker shall be available to respond. Okay, this is the proximity rule. That we don't need one. All right,
this is half an hour.
No, we have it so.
in the
much.
applications and standards, if you can get there in 60 minutes, you're in proximity. Okay, we just want somebody there for emergencies. If somebody sets your place on fire, we want somebody to get a hold of that can get there.
I just was wondering where you were at.
Okay, 60210. Caretaker.
Oh, I must be looking at the wrong
Okay,
copy.
so we have a violation of the ordinance that you can be informed of. Yes, sir.
Are you going to identify when an emergency is?
Wow, basically, if we get a 911 call or a complaint or a renter calls the fire department. Okay,
If the neighbor calls and says,
oh, an emergency, that would be you know, a noise complaint would be handled by an enforcement officer or the sheriff's department. An emergency.
so basically this rental ordinance.
You have somebody that goes on the beach and drowns.
I'm not saying to him.
We want to basically get a hold of the agent or the owner to let them know there's a problem with this rental.
Is the zoning officer going to keep drunk people from the sandbar from wandering through the property?
If that's a trespassing complaint, that's an issue for the sheriff's department.
Okay, so it's not a zoning issue.
No. Okay, if they're cited for trespassing, okay, the owner is going to get noticed and notified that a citation has been issued and it's a violation of the short-term rental agreement.
this officer that's gonna be taking care of all this, is this his sole job, just the rental ordinance or what's everything else?
That's why we're
Ordinance
we're looking at
enforcement,
a
not
second-
zoning
a
administrator.
second, the zoning administrator and an assistant too. Okay, basically for the purpose of enforcing this and other ordinances and the sheriff's department. Sheriff's Department, the extra 40 hours will be paid for by this. Okay. So we will have summer patrols for 40 hours a month. That's 10 hours a week.
And don't take care of all
Salary
this.
of ordinance enforcement.
Yeah, there's
Not that
zoning
in
issues.
too.
That's the primary responsibility of the zoning administrator.
No,
But one of his responsibilities is enforcement of the zoning ordinances. We will get him some help.
give him a moment.
Well,
That's a whole nother,
that's a whole nother issue.
11:58. I'm gonna open it up to public comment. It's 11:58. Do you want to open up to public comment? We'll start back up next time with license application.
Okay, I wanted to get through the license fee. Okay, license fee should be $500 a year per unit license. Okay, and now I didn't pull this out of a hat. I've saw anything from $750, $300, up to $2,000, depending on what you looked at. Yes, sir.
I think that it's right with discrimination on, some arbitrary number that you come up with. Earlier, you had mentioned something about ownership. You would give first dibs to those that live in the area, license, and then so on, if they lived in the state or if they lived out of state.
It wasn't first dibs. What it was an extended license period.
Okay.
Okay.
Then in terms of the amount that you would select or agree upon as a fee, you could also do that by an out-of-state person within the state, within the county, within the township, on the same property. So we would have to look at that very, very carefully, or
If it's uniform.
some huge amount that would put some people, and say, well, maybe it's not worth having it anymore. Maybe just tear it down and sell it for a ton or have a home built on it, which would be.
I understand. So we make it uniform, it's uniform. There is no discriminatory effect there. Okay, the other thing is, if it is a burden, before we approve this, okay, we have to hold another public hearing where you guys speak your piece. If that's an issue, a bona fide issue, we can adjust it before we approve it.
Do we have a handle on how many we think we're gonna get?
On how many? The earliest number I got was 91 existing. Okay, I think it's closer to 120. Okay, but we're looking at in the ballpark 100.
Well, 100 licenses for $80.
Yes.
So pay for-
Okay, so we have, that gives us some options. You're looking at 100 licenses, 30 grand. Just for the application fees. That gets us our community services officer, enforcement, administration. Okay. The license fee itself, first year, $50,000. That pays for the sheriff. Okay. That also pays for an outside corporation to come in and organize this mess. And if necessary, run the administration portion of keeping track of all this stuff. All right. So that we get it up to speed when what you're looking for is pretty much a turnkey operation on November 21st. Here's the keys to this thing. Everything's set up. This is the way it's organized. Good luck.
Can I throw out a question? Just so we have something to look at. Does anyone here think $500? I assume anyone's a short-term rental, $500 much? Okay, that's.
I'd say I would almost dare somebody to show me that they rent one of their units for less than $500 a week. We're talking about 1 week's rent here out of an entire season. Yes, sir.
The average in Clearwater Township, I just. Said at the very beginning. The average nightly is 5:30.
Okay, no, I understand that, but anyway, a valid question. Any other public comment before we'll wrap this up and start again?
Just want to bring up one item here. The real short trip, now over the weekend, I know the truck right now, it's 6:40. I just listened a few things and I came up with 18 different items where people only want to come for 2 or 3 days. Period.
Okay,
And see that all.
so the 7-day minimum's gone. Okay. Mr. LaFew,
I have something, but it's not necessarily on normal, so it's just on a Heritage Festival thing, and I sent you that letter about using some of the local ground around here for it.
I thought we addressed that, didn't we?
That's what we did.
Yeah, using the back lot here, at the township hall. Yeah, that was, I believe that was brought up at the last
I just
meeting.
wanted to get something in the minutes that you have acknowledged that we're gonna be using that. If you already did it in the last meeting, that's fine.
Okay.
Did you always also want to address that the Heritage Committee has a liquor license, so there will be liquor. So
That can't be done today because we're not all here.
No, that we just need approval, so.
About that.
This is Teresa Sherman. Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I just have a comment about the uniformity, and I think that should be checked by a lawyer, because I'm not really sure we should give residents a preference. I think it should all be, my opinion is it should just all be uniform. That's all I have.
Okay, yeah, we took, there's a note in here in my notes, on exactly that. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
I just wondered about that number, possible number, that 100 or 120, is that all the township or our board?
No, that's all the time. Okay, but what I'm saying is, that should be the cap and you work from there. All right, R1, you won't know that until the licenses are issued. Okay, that number. If they want to deal with that as a separate cap, that's the next board's decision, it's not ours.
And how will all the homeowners be notified that if you want to rent, you have to get this in?
Basically, all ordinances are required to be published in a newspaper of local circulation. Okay, we use two, the Calcasta Review and the Elk Rapids News.
It should be on the website.
And it would be posted on the website also. There should be copies at the office, in the foyer there in the little hanging bins they've got. So anybody that wants to know should know. Any other comments?
Just want to mention, does everybody here realize that we have a brand new website and it's more workable? It's for Ben. And actually, because it didn't come out in the newsletter, this kind of public.
It's still under construction too.
Now you can pay your taxes with a credit card online. We're getting many people that are doing that. And that is going to save the township money and time. But you can also look up, which we prefer people, instead of continually calling, we have to call back. If you can't, then that's, if you don't know how to look it up, what your taxes are, your previous taxes are, if they've been paid, you don't know how to look up online, we definitely want to help you. But if you can, it will save a lot of time getting back and trying to catch and phone tag. So if you can, check it out. It's pretty simple, I think, to look at and figure it out.
Who's picking up the fee from the credit card? Is the town paying it? That's not for the rest of the residents.
No, the residents, if you use that, but in the long run, you're saving the township money.
Somebody wants to pay on a credit card, then we get their taxes maybe 3% more. Okay.
Don't they charge a credit card fee on that site?
Yeah.
Yeah, they charge.
Figure it out.
But yes, so you pay.
Yeah. Go on top of, yeah.
If you go through a company like that.
We're off topic here.
This is
The taxes are online. We can pay by credit card. That's your point. Yes, sir. Yes.
Just briefly, Mr. Supervisor. I think we might be losing the purpose or the intent of this type of discussion and ordinance that we're putting together here. There's many communities around that in the residential neighborhood either ban or severely restrict or prevent. And the reason they do that is to protect the integrity and character of their residential neighborhoods. That should be the focus of this group and this ordinance is to protect the residential neighborhoods. Secondly, and it's going to go that way, that it should allow the residents, the homeowners, to recover some of the cost of ownership of the properties, not necessarily pay for generations to come, just to help offset property. I mentioned that the average nightly here, I just looked this up, was $535 a night. So if you allow 6 weeks, as part of the proposal is, that's $22,450 a year.
We haven't got
Minus
this.
a couple of expenses, so say 20 grand. And that goes a long way, in my opinion, offsetting the cost of the ownership of these properties. But the main purpose has to be to protect the integrity and the character of these residential neighborhoods. And I think we're kind of drifting away.
We're not there yet. Okay. If you look down further, when we get to R1 regulations and restrictions, those are things that need to be addressed yet. Okay. We're just trying to make this right the first time. Line by line, if we have to. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering where you got those facts. No one would know what we charge,
It's called air DNA.
but no one would know.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Addressing to the board.
Huh?
I'll tell you.
Now that it seems might be the same, and there are some areas within this township that probably aren't zoned correctly. If Crystal Beach Road is not historically an R1 residential district. It has been a tourism cottage industry for 150 years, maybe 100.
I understand that. But in order to do anything, in order to do anything,
it's not cookie cutter.
we have to have a mechanism first. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do, is establish a mechanism. If the next board wants to create a new commercial district simply for Crystal Beach Road, so be it. That's not my concern. My concern is getting a grip on this situation, setting up a mechanism where this township board has some authority to regulate and enforce some of our zoning ordinances that have become, I would say, to be gentle, nuisances in the past. Other than that, does anybody have any other public comments we get out of it? I don't think we'll schedule that today. We've got a board meeting coming up. We'll probably discuss it at that point and then publish it accordingly. It was in the paper this week, so yes, sir.
Hey, Nicole, I'm over on the Boyles, and I just wanted to listen to everybody first. My concern still is on the 7-day being removed.
Yeah.
I can say that I live, my place, it has a next door neighbor. That next door neighbor sold, the buyer turned it into an STR, but it is a party house. There are a minimum 12 adults. There have been some blowout events. And I do think that it's that, I think it's the management company, owner, that has a lot to do with this, not just in terms of picking clientele, but the idea that I can do what I want with my property, and somehow that noise, that event doesn't happen to the
He either applies for an STR and conforms to the standards, or we get him under our ordinance 22, which means he's operating a commercial business without living there.
Right.
Okay, either way, we go to court and we shut them down. If we have to put padlocks on the doors and windows, we get a court order to do that.
So, follow the next, we're built 7 day going away, because if the 7 day goes, then the idea of the limitations on 6.04, how do you enforce that? And you're now saying, okay, 3 out of 4 weeks, well, once a week.
We'll get there, we'll get there when we get there.
As soon as you pull that Jacob block out of the 7 day, there goes your limitations.
Second.
And so it's a setup. And now back to, I think it was Mr. Packer, your point about what was the intent to start with, was to, you know, the character of R1. And the character of R1 starts and falls with a 7 day going back. It really does. So thank you.
All right. Okay, yes, sir. Okay, we done? All right,
Are we gonna go, are you guys, the rest of it?
yes, yes, I'm gonna go through every line of it.
Are you having a meeting after the public can attend?
Yes,
Since we've got a lot more pages yet to go.
yeah, I know.
Can we at least push that out to April 13 to avoid the whole spring break? All that.
Yeah, we'll make a decision on a date for the next meeting on this particular subject at our March meeting. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
12:14.
12:14.